When people turn their eyes away from Gaza, it means that Israel can continue to do what it's been doing without anybody watching, and that's precisely what it wants.
Because if you get it off the screens, then you get it off people's minds, and then the governments are not under pressure to act. So they are creating that ecosystem of ignore this.
And when we move on to other conflicts and other stories, we're leaving the people of Gaza to die on their own.
And most news outlets, American ones for example, have moved on. A US-based Media Watch NGO, Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, has tracked the number of online news articles there on Gaza over the past 2 years. It reflects the spike in coverage in May of 2024, when Israeli forces invaded Rafah. The surge that August, when the Palestinian death toll exceeded 40,000. The first brief ceasefire in January 2025. August of last year, when a famine was declared, peaking in October when the ceasefire was announced. Since then, the coverage has nosedived, as though the ceasefire has actually held, when it has not.
Ceasefire is when Palestinians seize and Israel continues to fire. There is no ceasefire in Gaza. There is only restraint, limited restraint imposed on Israel, how many people they can kill and get away with it. So as long as they keep the number in this double digits and not above 100, then the world is okay with it.
The media is culpable here. The media has to say there is no ceasefire anymore. A ceasefire was signed and it's being violated systematically. Anything else is helping Israel cover up the continued systematic slaughter of the Palestinian people in Gaza.
Ceasefire implies that there are two sides that are involved.
It is day 11 of the ceasefire, the Israel-Hamas war.
Using the term ceasefire makes it seem as though somehow there was a war, rather than it being genocide.
It's the latest incident of violence testing President Trump's ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas.
It was and is a one-way genocide. Israel's been perpetrating genocide against Palestinians, and that's the way that it needs to be framed, the continuation of genocide.
Which many voices in the Israeli media are apparently okay with, and they are putting that out there. The newspaper Ma'ariv reported the Israeli military foresees the, quote, collapse of the Trump peace plan and is preparing to resume its assault on Gaza without restrictions and a full-scale occupation. The news network, Channel 14, revealed that the Army's chief of staff has already approved plans for a large-scale attack on the Strip.
אז אנחנו בעצם מפרסמים שהרמטכ"ל מאשר לפיקוד הדרום את התוכנית להכרעת עזה.
News consumers, observant ones, are detecting an occasional disconnect between what is being reported in the Israeli media and what makes it into international coverage. A pattern. Foreign outlets, including journalists the Netanyahu government has in its corner, get told one thing about the so-called ceasefire, while Israeli journalists are told another.
You see Israeli media consistently saying there is no ceasefire in Gaza, that it's only a matter of weeks before Israel resumes the full reoccupation of Gaza, and it is being said to reassure the Israeli mainstream, as well as the very far-right government that's in power, that don't worry, the ceasefire is merely symbolic, it's a spectacle.
If the IDF talks to the New York Times, the IDF talks to the Wall Street Journal, they will self-censor. When they talk to Channel 14 or Ma'ariv, they will be much more honest and open with what they're saying. So what they're saying to Israeli media is the truth. And what they're saying to foreign media is false. But foreign media needs to take these quotes from Israeli media and use them instead of relying on what the IDF is telling them, where they're much more likely to lie.
That Israel will resist implementation of what it has apparently signed up to is a given. Netanyahu wants to put Iran on the front burner, Gaza on the back burner, and there is an awful lot of willingness to continue to go along with impunity. Accountability is hard, impunity is easy. The Israeli side is not having to work hard to resist.
One of the disinformation methods the Israeli authorities have consistently used to avoid accountability for their war crimes has been to downplay the numbers. Ever since October 7th, they have dismissed the casualty figures coming out of the Gaza Health Ministry, the Palestinian death toll, calling the ministry a Hamas-run organization, casting doubt on the public health professionals who actually run the service. It is a misleading characterization adopted by far too many news organizations.
The Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry said the death toll has risen.
The Hamas-run Health Ministry says at least 250 people.
At least 31 Palestinians have been killed, according to Gaza's Hamas-run Health Ministry.
Now the Israeli government acknowledges that the ministry's casualty count, currently at 71,000, is in fact accurate, something the UN and various NGOs have been saying all along. Although many other analysts insist that the Palestinian death toll is much, much higher than that.
The 71,000 figure is actually a very conservative figure because it really only refers to those reported deaths. It doesn't refer to people who are lost, or people who are under the rubble, entire families that have been wiped off the map where they have no survivor who's there to declare that they have been killed. Believe me when I say that the number is much higher.
Studies published in The Lancet and The Economist suggest the number is going to be significantly in excess of 100,000. Rubble clearing equipment hasn't been allowed in to look for Palestinians, only for those Israelis who were remaining. It might be tactically smart to claim this number when you know the number is going to be significantly higher.
So all experts understood that this was an extreme undercount. But nonetheless, you had this schizophrenic process. The IDF, the Israeli government, the US, European governments would all use the number of casualties that is coming out of the Gaza Ministry of Health in internal discussions, while at the same time denying it to the public. So it was all about keeping the public as uninformed and as misled as possible in order to allow for this genocide to proceed.
More than 2 years into the genocide and 4 months into this supposed ceasefire, the Israeli authorities still will not let international journalists into Gaza. The Foreign Press Association has brought a case to the Israeli Supreme Court demanding that access. But the court is slow playing the legal process. Last week, it gave the Netanyahu government 2 more months to prepare its arguments to keep the ban. Remember when all those Israelis took to the streets to protect their legal system, demanding the government drop its plans for judicial reform? Now that same legal system is kicking the can down the road, keeping the padlocks on the gates into Gaza, blocking foreign journalists from going in to keep the ugly truth from coming out.
But there's a bigger issue, which is that there are Palestinian journalists on the ground. And instead of international colleagues believing their Palestinian colleagues about what they're not only seeing, but also living and going through, instead international journalists somehow seem to discount Palestinian journalists. So the lack of international access, coupled with the dehumanization of Palestinian journalists, is what has led to Gaza's not being covered.
I had a friend who went to Gaza in February 2025, and he said there was a thick stench of gunpowder and decomposing bodies all throughout the Gaza Strip. Entire cities vaporized, turned to dust and ash. The IDF cannot explain this away, which is why they just demonize every local journalist as Hamas, prevent international media from working with those journalists, cast dirt on them. The final result is a blackout. And the IDF is hoping to keep pushing this until reconstruction in Gaza begins. And by then, when people go in, they would film the progress. They will not dwell on the ruins and the rubble of the past.
Thank you for watching. Hit that like button and leave us a comment to let us know what you thought about anything we covered this week. And don't forget to follow us on social media. The links are in the description, and you can also subscribe to our newsletter for updates from the show.